boy, Europe's view of Roma people, or the Romani people. They used to have a different word that started with a G. I guess we're not supposed to say that anymore. I'll be honest, as an American, I still don't really understand this. Like, I don't get it. Even though I've been to Europe multiple times, like, why? And I've had multiple Europeans try to explain it to me. Why is there such an unfavorable opinion of the Roma? It appears the word gypsy is no longer used because Europeans initially took them as Egyptian. They're not Egyptian. Yeah, I can say confidently that Americans don't know any of this stuff. But damn, Italy, 83%? They've got the highest unfavorable views, just ahead of Greece, Romania, which I believe has the biggest population of these people. This is the country I tend to associate them with usually. But they can be found all throughout the Balkans, Turkey, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Hungary. I mean, as far as Ireland and Sweden. Basically every single country in Europe here. So I'm guessing that's why this sentiment passes through the entire continent. Bro, how is these numbers so high? Oh, Slovakia is actually in second place with 76%. The UK is the lowest here with only 23% though. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just they have other groups of people that they're more unfavorable towards. There's a whole lot of countries that are missing from this map, though. I mean, a ton of countries in the Balkans, nothing from Austria or Ireland or Denmark, Belarus, the Baltics. How is it that half of most of these countries have an unfavorable view? Half? You're talking millions of people. Millions of people that live in Poland, Romania, Hungary, Czechia, Bulgaria, Greece. Bro, apparently there's a whole 1 million people of Roma descent living in the United States. I didn't know that. And there's 100,000 in Brazil alone. I gotta say the vast majority of Americans probably only know about these people because that's a rebuttal when Europeans call us racist. Oh, we're racist? What are y'all's thoughts on, I mean, if these numbers hold up true, we already know their thoughts, and it's definitely not good. People also complaining that a lot of Balkan countries are left out on the map, and they do probably have a lot to say on the matter. I don't trust this kind of map as a rule, but that 83% figure for Italy tracks with my experience. It's just, how did it get so high? I mean, the share of population is so low here. What? Bro, this is just so confusing. Honestly surprised the UK is so low and one of the lowest. When I was studying abroad, it was the only topic that would make everyone, Italians, French, Spanish, Greeks, and the likes, agree on something. Oh, are they just confusing their capital city of Roma people? It's pretty crazy because of all places, Reddit is pretty unbearable. But these comments, yeah, there's lots of comments. Lots of interesting experiences, I suppose. I mean, even this complete BS, it's definitely plus 90% everywhere. This has 232 upvotes. What am I missing? I guess I'm just not European. I guess I just don't understand. This was posted for 1 hour, already had 620 comments. Well, yeah. So this seemingly uninteresting map post ended up getting hundreds of thousands of interactions on Twitter. This map is just breaking down different US states which have hosted the Olympic Games. There's New York, which has only hosted Winter Olympics back in 1932 and 1980. There's Utah, who's also hosted one Winter Olympics back in 2002. Georgia hosted the Summer Olympics back in 96. And then California, which is the only state that hosted both one Winter Olympics and at least one Summer Olympics. And fun fact, we're hosting another one in 2028. That's gonna give us a total of 4. That's crazy. I actually didn't even know we hosted a Winter Olympics back in 1960. No one told me that. But people weren't discussing any of that. People were only discussing one thing, and that is the state of Missouri and the city of St. Louis hosting the Summer Olympics back in 1904. I mean, I gotta admit, that didn't seem like that crazy of an outlier. I mean, Atlanta's a big city. I mean, Salt Lake City hosted something. Okay, St. Louis, well, whatever. But then this reply, St. Louis is basically America's lost city of Atlantis. Going there now, you could never in your wildest dreams fathom that it used to be the center of the world. And that got over 150,000 likes. I only liked it so I could come back to it later. This is St. Louis over 100 years ago. Freaking insane. I had to double check that. I had to make sure this is actually St. Louis. Like, literally looks like France. That's because in 1904, St. Louis hosted the World's Fair, or also known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. This honestly is, I gotta admit, it's kind of hard to believe. And I don't even know what St. Louis currently looks like. Apparently not good. How is this the 6th St. Louis autocomplete? What? Holy crap. I've never been to St. Louis, if that was not obvious. I've never even been to Missouri or anywhere close to that part of the US. It appears St. Louis has had one of the greatest fall-offs in human history. Now, mind you, there's probably a lot that has to do with that. Historically, I can see why St. Louis was important. It basically just comes down to the downfall of the Mississippi. You know, like going through our giant river was no longer as important to us as America anymore. The development of aviation and definitely automobiles made a lot of this stuff kind of useless. The Mississippi River was just not as important to the US anymore. Now, a lot of these replies are saying many of those buildings were made out of very poor quality, very bad material, which is why you can't see them anymore. I mean, even if you look at some of these photos at the time, you can see this stuff probably wasn't going to last that long. It sounds like the decline of St. Louis is somewhat similar to the decline of Detroit as well, like just manufacturing jobs leaving, which I feel like is the case for a lot of American cities. But it's so fascinating that forever in our history, St. Louis will be the place we hosted our first Olympic Games ever. Even before New York, St. Louis hosted the Summer Olympics almost a full 30 years earlier. This map is just making me really surprised Florida has never hosted a Summer Olympics. How has that been the case? California, New York, I get not a single one in Florida though? Kind of crazy. Bro, Europe is about to be in so much trouble. This is their decline in 75 years. There's only going to be population growth in a handful of countries. And mind you, it's almost not even double digits. Luxembourg, that doesn't count Luxembourg, bro. No. Honestly, W for Ireland for just managing to hit 0 because basically every other country is going to see a massive decline. For example, Italy, they're at negative 40% in 75 years. Do you know what that number is? There's about 60 million Italians currently living here. Well, actually, that's going down every single year. It's already started. Let's just round up to 60%. We're going to times that by 0.60 because they're losing 40%. So you got to take the 60. They're only going to be at 36 million population. It's going to be smaller than the current California population. Smaller than Canada. I'm imagining Texas is only going to increase. Texas will probably be ahead of them. And it gets far, far worse than that. Obviously, for a place like Ukraine, they're supposed to see negative 60%. They're not even starting off with that much population over here. Poland is supposed to go down by half. The Baltics, Belarus, Bosnia, Albania, North Macedonia, these are massive numbers. Mind you, this is not supposed to happen. This has never happened in human history. Any other point in human history, well, short of like a massive apocalyptic event, which definitely did happen in Europe, usually only saw population increase on a double-digit scale. This, along with the recent news that for the first time in history, the US had more births than all of the EU. Or the EU has almost 100 million more people in it. There's no reason why they should have less births. Since the 60s, the European Union has been killing us. They were hovering just below 7 million births per year. We were barely above 4 at the time. They've basically been declining every single year until we got to 2024, where I guess the US outpaced them. Yeah, I wouldn't really phrase this as the US suddenly has more births. It's just the EU has finally fallen to having just below births than us. Worth noting, the EU collective population is about 100 million more than the US, but this comment, not for long. I see so many people talking about why there's so much more immigration happening right now in France and the UK. Does this not make it obvious? Am I the only one? It looks to me like those governments here are just trying to not have basically this happen to them. I would assume that's gotta be the most logical answer here. Yep, it's only a matter of time before San Marino outnumbers Italy. All I know is that this will be completely wrong. It's hard to predict what exactly is gonna take place in 75 years. If I had to make a guess though, more than likely this map isn't going far enough. There might be even more loss of a population. I mean, I'm just thinking of like disasters. More disasters happening in the next 75 years. One thing's for sure, I don't see it going up. Like, I don't see these places just magically getting into the positives again. Every day we're getting closer and closer to this, bro. Like, we are so cooked. The birth rate might go to 0. I'll admit it, I'm a nerd, but I've always loved Air Force roundels. You'll find these things all over aircraft around the world, and I've always been fascinated the way certain countries have decided to take their rectangular flag and throw it on a circular symbol. Some places are a little bit more creative than others. For sure, at the very least, you gotta make sure that you're at least using all the colors from your flag in your Air Force roundel. These are a bit too similar. I would hope that they would do something. Germany, what the hell? Okay, Germany, that is giving World War II vibes. It's funny enough, this is reminding me of how, like, if you look at the naval flag for Japan, it's still the old World War II Japanese flag. I would not recommend doing that. I would argue this is probably the most famous roundel, at least the most famous roundel in the US, if that's not obvious, because this is in Top Gun. I mean, obviously it's going to be in Top Gun, a movie about the American Air Force. I'm so sorry, the Netherlands. I hate this so much. Like, I don't know what else you could have done. Like, I like that, like, Luxembourg here, who has a very similar flag to the Netherlands, they went with their old, like, heraldry flag. Heraldry? My bad, heraldry. It's like a throwback, which I mean, to be quite honest, I wish that Luxembourg just still use this flag to this day, but whatever. Here's Spain, here's Portugal. Italy got to have the green in it. Bosnia put a shield. Now, it doesn't have to be round technically to be a roundel. I know that doesn't seem like it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. There's got to be a roundel test. Maybe I can make it with AI. Like, I want to do, like, guess what country's roundel this is. I can get some of these because I remember the old historical flags. This is a historical version of the Swedish flag. Poland, I don't know if I would have got. First of all, Poland, that's a square, but, you know, whatever. I would definitely not be able to get Russia. I would say Switzerland's probably the most recognizable if you know their country's flag. Roundels, heraldry, naval insignias, I love all that stuff. The way countries decide to represent themselves with different symbols, it's just kind of awesome. Oh, I forgot to mention, yeah, I kind of didn't know. What is it, like one full plane? Estonia and Latvia are basically PlayStation buttons. That German Iron Cross doesn't go away. It's still around in the modern day. The Portuguese roundel could be identified by a medieval knight. That's pretty awesome. Don't know why a medieval knight would be coming across Portuguese aircraft, but who knows? I mean, when we invent time machines, who knows? The Russian and German ones feel very World War II. That should be obvious. A lot of this stuff does stem back to the World War II days, especially because World War II aircraft was so important. Do not look up Finnish Air Force symbol in 2017. Yeah, it was a swastika. Just to say, you don't have to look it up. It's a swastika. Thank you to my patrons this month. Drew seems like the kind of guy who never loses the remote. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund, Rip Grandpa. Drew Supremacy League, Alexander the Terrible, Carmel S, Connor Pavlik, Douche Baggins, Frederick Tiblin, King, Bear Hayes, Luxembourg Lover, Miglu, The Goat, Nolan, Nord Tyrol, and Tambrin.